Receiving a photo from one of his lackeys, Kirishima Miyama would love the girl in it to mess up his life. In Osaka, at the Somei residence, Yoshino asks her grandfather about the latest tabloid involving the Yakuza world. Given her grandfather, Renji, was a direct descendant of the Kirigaya Yakuza, he was excited seeing the older manly image of himself. Yoshino didn't care about that though. She wanted to know why it said, "The grandchildren of the two groups have been very close for a long time. Their engagement may be just around the corner." She'd never even met the grandson of the Miyama Yakuza from Tokyo, so she wondered how she could be getting engaged to him. Turns out, her grandfather spread the rumor. Since she was 17 and always seemed so lonely, he'd been looking for a partner for her, citing the Miyama grandson to be handsome, looking just like the grandfather, Gaku. When he was young, Yoshino's grandfather was good friends with the grandfather from the Miyama family. Renji told Yoshino she was beautiful because of his genes, and it was going to waste without giving him an heir. And even though everyone in town agreed on her beauty because of her face, she was often called Hostess of Umeda, or Mrs. Divorced with Kids. Her grandfather tried to console her and encourage her to go to Tokyo to see Kirishima. She wondered if that was some kind of alias, but her grandfather assured her the boy was not a Yakuza, but a regular high schooler. Arriving at the Miyama house, she was blown away by how huge it was. Inside, she met with Gaku, and he truly was handsome in her eyes. He complimented her on looking just like Renji, and she affirmed people often say she looked just like her young grandfather, but as a woman. Nervous, however, she asked to know where Kirishima was, and turns out he was right behind her. Smiling, he introduced himself, taking her by the shoulder to show her around the house, learning it was a remote house that was renovated for her, separate from the main house. Yoshino felt bad, since she didn't know whether or not she'd truly choose to stay here, but even so, Kirishima was polite, telling her it was totally fine for her to decline living here. He figured she was being forced, saying what she thought previously, an arranged marriage between two people that have never even met before, and calling it an outdated custom. Kirishima figured this wouldn't work out, but when he heard she was coming to see him, he was really happy. Later, at Oren Private School, we learned Yoshino was so impressed with Kirishima, she transferred immediately, but couldn't shake the feeling her grandfather took advantage of her. After chatting and getting walked to class by Kirishima, she thought he really didn't seem like he was from a Yakuza family. She was relieved he was so normal. In class, she was shocked to find 3 girls wanting to talk to her. Since no one ever wanted to talk to her at her old school, they had heard she had come to school with Kirishima and wondered if she was his relative or girlfriend. Upon hearing she was neither of those, the girls slammed her desk, saying they didn't believe her. All of a sudden, Yoshino's school experience was now not so pleasant. No matter where she went, she could tell all the girls were staring at her. However, Kirishima was still wonderful. He was surprised to hear from her he was so popular, given most of the other students didn't really talk to him. But it made sense since everyone knew he was the grandson of a Yakuza. Yoshino didn't know they knew that, and now wondered if they were all afraid of him because of that. But Kirishima just smiled on, saying if the Yakuza did start anything, they could just be reported to the police and be taken care of. As long as people know that, there's no need to be afraid. Even with his explanation, Yoshino paused, wondering if Kirishima felt annoyed from the strange looks people gave him. His response became unsettling and somewhat cynical, saying, "Who knows? I haven't given it that much thought, and who cares anyways?" Yoshino was not prepared for his switch in tone, but seeing he switched back to being positive and cheerful, she disregarded it. Lying in bed that night, she got up suddenly, unable to sleep at all. She was freaking out, and reflecting on how Kirishima seemed like a different person in that small moment at the staircase. She stepped out of her room to get some water, and noticed light outside the window. Taking a peek outside, she spotted Kirishima covered in blood, but then hid from view to avoid being spotted. Heaving in panic, she now knew he was a Yakuza. At school, she just couldn't stop thinking about it, but tried to deny what she saw, convincing herself it was hallucination from lack of sleep. She then overheard some girls talking shit about her, calling her flashy and saying they were shocked if Kirishima actually liked her. One of them even made up a rumor about how she was working in the sex industry to pay off her debts while giggling. Man, what a pain. This was exactly like how it was back in Osaka. After school, while she and Kirishima were out shopping for supplies, she told him she needed to withdraw money at the convenience store and said she'd be back quickly. On her own though, she found herself surrounded by 3 men who reeked of alcohol. She wondered if she was getting hit on? In her whole life, she'd never once been approached on the streets other than by old man Mr. Imai at the shopping district. They grabbed her by the shoulder to escort her, despite her telling them someone was waiting for her, telling her not to resist. One of them was suddenly grabbed by Kirishima, who kindly told them she was shopping with him. The guy he was holding tried to grab his arm, and this is when Kirishima's expression changed, as he twisted the man's arm back and smashed a bottle over his head. The 2 other men became nervous, seeing Kirishima's twisted smile, and after taking them out, he just kept slugging one of them over and over, so much Yoshino begged him to stop. Kirishima turned, smiling, saying he'd be just a bit longer though. Patting the unconscious, beaten half-to-death man, Kirishima told the man he better remember his face, and that girl is my woman. So don't even try to talk to her if you see her again. You can tell your buddies about me in as much detail as possible. Feel free to come back for revenge. But I'll slaughter you and all of your family. Got it? The man agreed before being let down. Now walking away with Yoshino, Kirishima explained the sheltered life she experienced, given everyone in her town knew she was the granddaughter of the leader of the Somei. Someone was also probably with her at all times who didn't look like a criminal. He warned her to be careful here though, since this wasn't Osaka. Before continuing, she pointed out how he still had blood on his hoodie. He didn't think much of it, deciding to take it off. And Yoshino was shocked to see his tattoos. Oh, he just forgot to mention them. But now approaching her, she slapped his hand away. She didn't mean to, he just seemed so intimidating. He sighed, saying this was all too tiresome, and he couldn't do this anymore. A surprising revelation for Yoshino. The tone changed once more, with Kirishima admitting he had high hopes for her being the granddaughter of another Yakuza gang's leader, who was beautiful. He assumed she'd been spoiled, was selfish to the core, and was supposed to be a woman who acted all high. He liked the idea of a woman who's loathed by other women. He loved the idea of being pushed around by a woman who didn't have any female friends, ignored any basic human rights, and messed him up. She sank, unable to comprehend his insane desires, and now he clarified she was more normal than he hoped for. So normal he's gotten sick of her. He thought they'd have fun for a year, but now felt she was too much of a burden. Right now, she was a completely worthless woman to him, and he asked her to at least make him some money to compensate for his time, pointing out her selling points were her face and body. He wanted her to sell them and make his money. He even tried to sell her on the idea of working in a brothel he was involved with, one where if she worked hard in, she could easily make 1,000,000 yen in 2 months. She could use the tagline, classy and clean, with lighter customer-pleasing options. But if she couldn't do that for him, he wanted her to leave, go back to Osaka, and tell her family exactly what he told her. He'd be perfectly fine to spark another gang war. Maybe they'd have him hanged. He was looking forward to the conflict. Yoshino never imagined a twisted man like Kirishima could exist in this world. She really wondered if she should go back. Checking her shoe cubby, she was shocked to see mud all over her stuff. This was her first time experiencing school bullying. She tried taking a picture of it for her grandfather, but now wondered what that'd actually do for her. Washing her shoes out in the evening, the sound of returning home to Osaka sounded so tempting. She then heard her phone ringing, and it was her grandfather, as cheerful as ever. He could tell she was sad, but told her she needed to stay there for 1 year. Even if she got bullied or played with, he told her not to come back, no matter how hard it got. He told her to spend a year making that Miyama boy fall in love with her to the point that he'd die for her. Then, after a year, she should come back and leave him without mercy. That was the most effective revenge against a man. He explained that women used to dump him all the time too, and honestly thought he was dead when 3 women threw him into the river after they found out he was playing them, with the call ending from her grandfather's chuckles. She only thought of how all the men around her were trash. Whatever though, since her grandfather insisted, she planned to do exactly as he expected. At one of his jobs, Kirishima talked with Aoi about how Yoshino's been gone for 2 weeks now. Aoi was concerned, knowing Kirishima's father would kill him, but he claimed he couldn't help it. At school the next day, Yoshino came into his classroom, surprising him since he thought she'd gone back home. She cockily reminded him he said her selling points were her face and body, so throwing her bag on his desk, she told him that's exactly what she did. 1 kidney, 4 million yen. She called some connections and got it done from a friend of a friend of a friend, having it removed by endoscopy. She smirked, telling him she was on a diet from salt for the rest of her life. Getting up and ready to go back to her class, she told him she wasn't going back to Osaka and didn't care what he did moving forward, but there would be consequences for him getting too carried away. She then called out the female students who had chastised her earlier, telling them even if she had to crawl to the floor or choke on her own blood, she'd drag them down to hell with her and f*** their lives up. Kirishima was shocked to see Yoshino's ferociousness. He quickly stopped her from leaving, and with a big smile, said he loved her, taking her aback. This was apparently one of the most thrilling experiences he's ever had in his life. He was surely convinced this feeling was love. He pulled her close, saying he wanted them to get married, and for her to mess up his life. But she wondered what was wrong with his head. And I'm wondering what's wrong with your head if you haven't liked this video or subscribed to my channel yet. It's obviously common sense. Because here at my Shoujo Weekly, I'm gonna cover all the fun stories no one's talking about. Like badass women, they're here. Like hot men, they're here too. I also live stream weekly, where we talk about interesting topics and play games. So come on, hit that subscribe, I'll be your guy. During lunch, we see Yoshino sneaking around, trying to avoid Kirishima. She just wanted to eat in peace, but it's like every free second she gets, he's suddenly there. Crap. She's feeling the pain from her kidney transplant. The stomach and stress are killing her. She felt he had some nerve telling the same girl he told to go sell her body that he loves her. On top of that, he was always smiling, so it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. But of course, he was smiling right behind her. She jolted up, wondering how he found her here, to which he answered, probably his love for her. Just kidding, though he is seriously in love. The real answer was he crammed a GPS in her electronic dictionary. She was furious, smashing her device in half. Ignoring her complaints, he was also here to tell her his father wanted to talk to them. Waiting at home, Yoshino was nervous over what this meeting could be about. However, Gaku was too busy, so Aoi and Sota came in his place. Aoi relayed to them the daughter of Akaza Enterprises' president has gone missing. They were a third-string Tokusa clan affiliate, with Miyama being second to the main clan. She could have just run away or been kidnapped, which wouldn't be a big deal to them, except now they had Yoshino here. So, she was thus ordered to be with Kirishima 24/7 until the Akaza daughter was found. News she was not too eager to hear. Instead of keeping her safely at the house though, Kirishima took Yoshino out for dinner, where he happily watched her eat. All his watching was giving her a headache, so she decided to ask what he really even liked about her, adding that if he thought there was any chance she could fall for him, he probably had flowers growing where he ought to have brain cells. Kirishima just responded in laughter, saying he loved everything about her, but especially her sharp tongue. Despite how nice he was though, she could still feel a threatening aura from him. But also, no one has ever said they liked her before, so she had no basis for comparison. He then presented the photo of the missing daughter, Shiori Akazawa, 20 years old and attends a junior college in Kanagawa. Yoshino couldn't help but ask if her tattoos were real. We learned from Kirishima he chatted with her 2 years ago at a funeral for a consultant to the main family. Shiori was your typical spoiled rich girl. Yoshino wondered if she should be worried if either of them were in danger of being kidnapped as well. However, Kirishima doubted it, since he himself was not related to the patriarch Gaku directly. Gaku decided to not have any kids, meaning no grandkids either. He's actually Kirishima's real grandfather's older brother. But when Kirishima was 12, he caused trouble and Gaku was the only one he could turn to. After taking a quick phone call, Kirishima received the news that one of Akaza Enterprises' men died. The body belongs to an associate member of Akaza Enterprises. He started out as a host and ended up running a handful of restaurants around the city. In particular, he ran gaming rooms and Shiori was a regular at one of those rooms. The killings made sense, since the Tokusa clan only dominated 70% of Tokyo. rest by another. It had been about a 100-year bloody stalemate against enemy turf. Yoshino gets a ride after school after buying a new hairdryer. It's there. Sota explains he'd never had a proper conversation with Kirishima. The first time the two had met was apparently middle school, and he had heard prior that Kirishima had a violent incident in the 5th grade. It was a big enough deal that his parents weren't able to handle it on their own. So, Gaku took care of it, and that's how Kirishima ended up in the family. There were 20 other kids altogether, both classmates and older students with their bones snapped. This was unnerving to hear for Yoshino. Taking a brief stop in traffic, Yoshino noticed the rose-printed tattoos. She spotted Shiori. Sneaking around inside the building Shiori went into, Yoshino called Kirishima. He commented her being missing must have been BS. Her father had been hard to track down lately as well. They were probably both trying to lay low. However, Kirishima didn't explain why. He could now see though the club was Nox Tokyo, a non-Takusa turf that belongs to the Kirigaya Gumi. Coincidentally, that was one of Yoshino's families. It now made sense why no one knew where Shiori was, since Kirishima's family wouldn't be here at all. Hearing that Kirishima and Yoshino decided to retrieve Shiori, Gaku let them go. At the club, Yoshino was not a fan of the loud noise, but Kirishima had no problem guiding her around. Inside the VIP room, we learn Shiori is going overseas for a while. She's apparently glad to be here, having been fed up with people watching her all the time because of her father. The reason she's leaving is because she was caught cheating at the baccarat tables with the dead Yakuza Enterprise member. And against the Filipino Mafia too. She cheated out 500 million yen and had no choice but to pay these guys for protection. Kirishima then kicked the door open, having heard everything. After introducing himself, he walked right over their table, casually sitting beside a girl telling them he meant no harm, but knew Shiori's father was now trying to lay low as well, because his daughter ripped off $500 million from the Filipino mob. He told Shiori to come join him at the Miyama office, because right now, she was causing too much trouble for the main family. But oh man, there are more Kirigaya Gumi men right behind Yoshino, who smacked her aside. Kirishima did not take this kindly, deciding to assault the men he was near right away. He immediately jabbed a fork into one of them. No way was he gonna let someone disrespect his girl. A brawl began. Yoshino was in pain, but seeing Kirishima beating the men up, she remembered what she heard about his past. Wondering how the man before her could hit someone with all his strength. She felt weak and didn't want to feel this way any longer. Kirishima continued his relentless assault, getting stabbed from behind with a knife. And as someone else was coming from behind him with a bottle, Yoshino smashed her new hairdryer right on the man. She was pissed, telling the man to die. Kirishima was angered that the man made his girl bleed, so he continuously punched the man in the face over and over. Yoshino hit Kirishima on the head, explaining there was no need to kill someone over a little blood. She then spotted Shiori, hoping she wasn't dead. However, Kirishima didn't care if she was. He was too depressed, seeing Yoshino bleeding. Later, we learned President Akaza got away with just being expelled, and his daughter ultimately did end up overseas, since she wasn't safe in Japan. Kirishima also received a beating, since he made a bunch of trouble on the Kirigaya Gumi turf. But he happily gave Yoshino 10 million yen. It was his cut of the 500 mil split between the Filipino Mafia and his family. In exchange for finding the girl and President Akaza, they decided to split the money down the middle and call it a day. He wanted to give it to Yoshino since she sold her kidney the other day. Plus, he didn't know how to show he was being sincere outside of giving cash. If that wasn't going to work, he'd be fine selling his corneas. Yoshino didn't need his money or corneas, however. She just needed a new hairdryer and for him to come along, to which he happily complied. However, Kirishima spotted a man outside the school on a motorcycle. A man who, taking off his helmet, continued to stare at them. One who, even though Kirishima tried to cheerfully ignore talking to Yoshino, he was still in the back of his mind. One evening, the girl Kirishima's been fooling around with asks if he's gotten a girlfriend. He gets excited, wanting to tell her about Yoshino. However, the girl wonders if this really was the appropriate time to talk about another girl to her. He showed her the picture and boy, she couldn't stand Yoshino's look. She told Kirishima to give up on Yoshino, assuming she hated him and that maybe she had a guy she likes back in Osaka. But then, Kirishima answers competing for her would only make things more thrilling. Trying to sleep, Yoshino could feel someone watching her. Half asleep, she thought it was her grandfather at first, but then remembered this was Tokyo. She woke up, eyes wide, wondering if that was all a dream, but now realizing it must have been Kirishima. But how could he have gotten in if she locked all the doors? She then thought about what he wanted with her. Could he have finally gotten tired of her enough to warrant killing her? About to drink her water, she gets annoyed with herself for getting used to his eccentricity without becoming even a little bit upset. She's becoming desensitized. She's now decided to change the lock on the front door and keep her kitchen knife close for self-defense. Trying to sleep tonight, she could totally tell he's here, and he had blood on his face. Whatever he was gonna try, she was ready with her knife. However, she was shocked to feel him braiding her hair. She was at her limit and couldn't take it anymore. She tried to strike with her knife, but he caught her and pinned her to the ground. Now he was saying she scared him because he had no idea she was awake. But of course, she was the one scared of him. He picked her up and apologized. Then she bopped him on the head, calling him annoying. She wanted to know what was going on and how he got in here. To which he explained he duplicated the key with aluminum a while ago. Completely irritated, Yoshino told him it was time for a lecture. She started telling him he couldn't just come and go into her room as he pleased. Not because it was common sense, but simply because she didn't like it, and he accepted. He then answered why he was sneaking around in her room at night. It's because he's only seen her face when she was mad at him, and someone told him she might hate him. So, he wanted to see her sleeping face, because surely no one could be mad while sleeping. And he could look at her as much as he wanted. She replied of course she was mad at him all the time. All he did was commit crime. But now she was concerned about him looking beaten today. He just laughed it off, saying he got punished by Aoi for staying out past his 1 AM curfew, which he almost never obeyed, by the way. Yoshino considered being less angry with him if he started coming home by curfew. One of her gripes with him is he never followed a single rule, and also, he's been playing around with other girls. She could tell he was a liar, just like her grandfather. One thing that crossed Kirishima's mind was the fact that Yoshino noticed all this, and yet she wasn't angry about it. In her mind though, it was none of her business. But if a guy she actually liked cheated on her, she'd kill him. So by that logic, Kirishima was now determined to make her want to kill him. He was happy every day with her by his side. In fact, he always wanted to come home as soon as possible because she was here. And he thought going to school was fun because she's with him. He wondered if she hated him. But she explained she wasn't avoiding him because she hated him. She avoided him because she had no idea what he was gonna do. He usually refused to do things he was uninterested in. But when he did do something, he always went all in. She found it refreshing that he didn't put on airs and was always consistent. Those were his good points in her eyes. For now, she was gonna put a bandage on his wounds. But before she could, he pinned her down saying, "I love you too," and that he'd try his best to get her to kill him when he cheats on her. Not the most romantic display of affection in my opinion. On another day, we see Yoshino watering the garden when Kirishima brings her mail from Osaka. He had also gotten a letter from her grandfather, since he sent Renji an apology letter for letting her get injured that night they went to Knox, Tokyo. Her mail was a request for her father's album photos. Her father was quite weak when it came to fights, and he hated Yakuza. Often even argued a lot with her grandfather and left home right after high school and got married. He died in a traffic accident before she was born, so she actually didn't even know how it felt to have a father. Setting the dark childhood past aside, Kirishima explains her grandfather is coming to Tokyo the day after tomorrow for the Goryeo League's meeting. With all the Yakuza leaders meeting, we learn the Kanto Goryeo League is a fellowship of political organizations in the Kanto region. They have a dinner party 4 times a year where top executives of the member organizations get together. It's like a summit for the heads of state. Kirishima presented some photos from the league in the past, and Yoshino spotted his grandfather from when he was younger standing next to hers. She was shocked at how much Kirishima looked just like Gaku. She was also surprised to see how well her grandfather and his seemed to get along back then. Kirishima added they definitely got along, given his grandpa hated cameras. So they only have these 10 photos of him from when he was young, but in all 10, he's with Renji. After the league meeting, we see Renji trying to chit-chat with Gaku, telling Gaku he sounds sleepy and like a wet rag. He then started stuffing black candy he got at the station into Gaku's pockets, despite Gaku protesting. Elsewhere, we see the mysterious guy who was on the motorcycle on the phone with Yoshino. Apparently, he was the one who retrieved her father's photos from Osaka and mailed them to her. She wanted him to check her old room again to retrieve more. On another day, she decided to meet with Takeru Hote, a member of her father's house. He was close to her grandfather and often a bodyguard. He apologized on her grandfather's behalf as he headed home yesterday. He was a busy man. Takeru was curious about Kirishima, and she had no idea how to describe him except with the words masochist, destructive, womanizer, and fake smile. But instead of all that, she just nervously responded Kirishima was mentally strong. Yoshino was surprised to hear Takeru suggesting she bring Kirishima back during summer break. He knew she might find this overbearing. However, Takeru was the one who basically raised her in childhood, since her grandfather was often too busy. Takeru just wanted to see what kind of man he was entrusting her to. She knew though that Kirishima was so eccentric, he'd be willing to fly to Osaka tomorrow. Then suddenly, Shoma Toriyashi arrived. She took him shopping because visiting, he didn't bring any extra clothes with him. With an expressionless look, he told her he was only here to bring her the album, which she thanked him for, but wanted him to have extra clothes since he was staying the night. While he changed, we learn her grandfather took him in during his junior high years after picking a fight with him. After changing, he suddenly came out shirtless, telling the cashier he was ready to buy. However, Yoshino told him to have common sense and put a shirt back on at least. In his private study, Kirishima stares at a photo of Shoma. This was part of his research. We then turned to Shoma eating happily. Yoshino pulled up his sleeve, telling him he needed to hide his tattoos properly. He then asked about Kirishima, to which Yoshino replied she was going to follow her grandfather's plan to make him fall in love with her, and then ditch him. Shoma then added a further purpose she was here for, possibly involving a feud with another Yakuza gang. However, he wasn't totally sure. That night, the two went into Shoma's hotel room. Yoshino wanted to rest since she had overeaten from the buffet. She conveyed the complexity of things, always trying to get the better of Kirishima, always being ready to kill him before he kills her, trying not to show a bit of weakness to him. That's all she ever thinks about every day. But in the end, Kirishima is the only guy she can trust in Tokyo. She was always caught off guard by him, because no matter how much time she spent with him, she never knew his real face. She felt tired, and honestly wished to go back to Osaka with Shoma right now. Shoma had no problem with this idea. If all that was needed was for Kirishima to disappear, Shoma was willing to kill him for her. Yoshino was taken aback, thinking there was no need to go that far. However, Shoma thought things might be better off if Kirishima was dead. She still denied the request, so he was fine waiting until she changed her mind. Smoking outside, Kirishima came by to tell him there was no smoking allowed on this road, then told him, "Nice to meet you, Shoma Toriyashi," while introducing himself. Kirishima lets him know this isn't the first time they've met, and that he's here to pick up Yoshino. Shoma asks if Kirishima was tailing them, but Kirishima doesn't really answer, instead picking at Shoma's inability to notice if he was. Kirishima, with his usual smile, explains he's not here to fight, especially not with one of Yoshino's family members. And if the two were to wed, Shoma would become his brother-in-law. Shoma hates that idea and asks who Kirishima is working for, to which Kirishima responds he knew Renji most likely had no intention of letting him marry Yoshino. He knew, and still accepted the potential matchmaking anyways and wanted to remain by Yoshino's side because he was in love with her. Then, Yoshino came scurrying down, asking why Kirishima was here, but with him up close, she quickly concluded she needed to see his phone. And looking at it, it was exactly what she thought. Kirishima cloned a version of her phone and was using it to pull location data from her. She told him he could just call her if he wanted to know, and he complied without worry, agreeing to do that from now on. About to take her leave, Shoma grabs her arm, telling her she should come back with him to Osaka after all, because no matter how you look at it, it was clear to him Kirishima was insane. But then, Kirishima grabbed her next, certain she wouldn't leave, remarking he was the best person for her to marry. Shoma couldn't believe this, given everything Kirishima had done up to this point. And even though Kirishima played dumb, Shoma started with the fact that he was clearly a stalker. Hearing Kirishima saying, "An outsider like you doesn't have any say in this," Yoshino told him to watch his mouth. To her, Shoma was family, no matter what, and she in turn called Kirishima the outsider here. Kirishima was caught by surprise, and he apologized. The next morning, Yoshino ran to Tokyo Station to meet Shoma before his trip back. With her arrival, he looked around, asking where Kirishima was, and she believed he was most likely at home since she didn't tell him she was coming here. Yoshino pointed out how clear it was that Shoma didn't like Kirishima, since he's always hated guys who were too talkative. The two of them thought Kirishima was crazy. However, Yoshino remained in order to follow her grandfather's advice. She wanted to come out of this situation the winner. But still, Shoma remarked he didn't understand. He felt like if she was going to throw away her own rules and pride, she might as well throw away her life. As the train arrived, her answer to this was that she couldn't throw away her honor and pride, and if she did, she'd have nothing left. Hearing she was willing to die for her pride caused Shoma's eyes to widen. He wouldn't be willing to die for something like that. But when she asked him what he was willing to die for, he pointed at her. She was surprised by his response, but then surprised once again to hear him say she had a bug in her hair. He pulled it out, learning it wasn't a bug, but instead breadcrumbs from what she ate this morning. Seeing him off, Shoma suddenly hugs Yoshino, promising to come back, while she told him to do good in college. This all occurred while Kirishima was watching them in secret. The next day, on the way to school, the train ride was packed because of an elementary school sports festival event going on. More people crowded, causing Kirishima to get close to Yoshino. She could feel his body heat and noticed he smelled really good. She opened up to Kirishima about how back in Osaka, she was practically always chauffeured to and from school, except in middle school, when she used to walk with Shoma, and the mention of his name brought up Kirishima's bloodlust aura. However, when Yoshino turned to look at him, he had on his usual smile as if nothing happened. In class, she kept thinking about it. It was like that same look he gave her that one time on the staircase. She wondered if that meant he was bored of her again. She now reflected on the fact that she hadn't made any effort to make Kirishima fall in love with her. Later that night, while sorting her clothes, she kept thinking about how Kirishima was so unpredictable. Just thinking about him pissed her off. And there he was at her door, asking what was pissing her off. Turns out, he was here to deliver her a package from Osaka, and learning she was just sorting out her clothing to wear for the summer, he seemed somewhat cold, initially thinking she was packing to return home. She could feel his pressure. She turned around, questioning if he wanted to kill her now, but that wasn't the case at all. And he hadn't gotten bored of her either. So, she asked if he hated Shoma, to which he responded he wasn't sure about that either, since he'd never disliked anyone before. She added what if she told him that she and Shoma were dating, and shockingly, Kirishima wouldn't mind, answering that sometimes he gets girls to cheat on him. He wanted one condition though. He didn't care if she dated someone else. He just wanted her to do it all in front of him. He brought up the saying of carrot on a stick, but he didn't care for the carrot. He was more interested in the stick itself. This only applied to someone he felt equal to, and since he was the only one in love here, he couldn't win against Yoshino. He believed the carrot and the stick needed to be exactly equal. So, if she kissed her lover or made love, he wanted it all in front of him. She could even tie him to a pillar or something similar. And at the end of it all, Kirishima would kill the man as his way of balancing everything out. She called him insane. It sounded as if he was jealous. This is something he now took in as a realization, that perhaps jealousy drove him insanely crazy. He then tried offering to play the part of a normal guy, like she always wanted, and she coldly asked him if he was just going to flip his way of life to please a woman. She sighed, deciding to spill her motives since she felt like she was being unfair. She admitted she was going to dump him after a year and go back to Osaka, but now she's made up her mind that if by any chance she did fall in love with him, she'd continue to live in Tokyo. He was surprised to hear she believes he'd act well to be her ideal man, but she clarified this wasn't her saying that would make her fall in love with him. He wasn't sure what to do with this information, so she shouted, telling him instead of pretending to be a halfway decent human being, he should go wild and be the craziest man in the world. He took a breath of relief, admitting he was afraid that one day he'd get tired of her, but now he was eccentric, saying he loved her more than ever and that he'd always love her. She then told him to hurry off because he was giving her a headache. She was going to change and have dinner now. On another morning, Yoshino found herself with a low temperature. Just like in her childhood, she always caught summer colds. Feeling a massive headache, she decided to take the day off from school and told Kirishima there was no need to check up on her. Kirishima rang her doorbell anyway, much to her annoyance, and he was sweating heavily from having rushed to get her supplies. After cooling himself off, he explained he wasn't going to school so he could take care of her, but she said she'd be fine if she just rested. When he offered to take her to the hospital, she declined that as well since she hated hospitals, and pushed him away so he could make it to class on time. He turned to tell her he'd text message her every hour and that he'd be home soon. He really was a needy guy. During lunch, after learning Yoshino's fever went up a bit, he tried to call her, getting no response. He decided to leave early, but first, he had to deal with a job from one of his clients named Sagawa. Kirishima ended up calling Aoi to send someone to take care of it, because he wanted to hurry back to Yoshino. Sagawa became frightened, believing Kirishima wasn't Yakuza. But of course, none of that mattered to Kirishima. Arriving at Yoshino's place at night, he rang the doorbell, getting no response. So he picked her door lock and found her heaving heavily. Despite her whining, he took her temperature, while apologizing for returning so late. Seeing her fever was definitely worse, he called for a car, picked her up, and on the ride to the hospital, unknowing of what was happening, all Yoshino could think about was the good smells that exuded off of him. The next morning, Kirishima let Renji know everything was fine with Yoshino, and that he would take care of her, even if he had to be a stalker. Renji was fine with this. On Renji's end, while heading out for business, Shoma stared at his boss leaving, determined to figure out what his aim in all this truly was. Yoshino finally wakes up around noon, noticing her fever has gone totally down, but is shocked to find Kirishima sitting right beside her, who has been by her side since they returned from the hospital. Remembering the embarrassing expressions she made while being sick, she apologized to Kirishima, who had to see them. Kirishima tries to leave, but she stops him. She knows he probably hadn't eaten, having stayed with her all night, so she offered to thank him with udon. Returning back to school, Yoshino becomes depressed, realizing she's screwed. They only had 2 days left before exams. She was especially not good at math. Kirishima offered to help her, since he didn't study much himself outside of school. He just did his assignments and went over all his notes and textbooks while in class. Learning this made Yoshino more depressed, now understanding how stupid she was in comparison. How was she going to get into college struggling even with the most basic math? Kirishima was fine with that though. Assuming they'd get married, he'd just do all the calculations for her. Now remembering something important, Yoshino brought up how she was going to Yokohama on the last day of exams, because her cousin was moving there from Tokyo. Kirishima accompanied Yoshino at the station that day, wanting to make sure she and her cousin were safe. He already had quite a bit of intel as well, knowing Yoshino's father and her cousin's mother were half-siblings, and that the cousin was 1 year older, about to attend college. Yoshino explains her family's complicated lineage. Her cousin's mother was the daughter of one of Renji's mistresses. Additionally, the mistress suddenly turned back up when her aunt turned 10, so there's a bit of ambiguity as to whether or not there's actual blood relation. Renji never questioned it though, having raised her aunt anyway. Kirishima then brought up Yoshino's cousin majoring in international studies. Her background was closer to that of a typical rich girl. Finally making it to her, Tsubaki Akashigata happily greeted her cousin. Tsubaki's form of compliment was to say Yoshino still had a lovely face like their grandfather's, which Yoshino didn't really understand. Tsubaki then greeted Kirishima, and Yoshino used this opportunity to sell her cousin as his type. A genuine young, fashionable lady with white, big dark eyes and long black hair. She possessed a beauty other girls would be jealous of. Kirishima's response was that it was a pleasure to meet a beautiful woman like her, and Tsubaki was impressed by how nice and handsome he was. Making their way, the three continued to converse about Tsubaki's background, notably the fact that she had a bit of a country accent being from Kyoto. Yoshino was surprised with Tsubaki's move, since her entire female lineage was from Kyoto, both her mother and grandmother. There's even an urban legend about how Kyoto women marry late, because they love Kyoto so much and don't want to marry outside the prefecture. Seeing some sandals in a windowsill, Tsubaki was going to recommend them to Yoshino. However, Kirishima beat her to it. Yoshino thought they were cute, but then figured she'd be too tall with heels, although Kirishima didn't really mind. Later, Yoshino got a little overfull, having gone overboard eating a bun, then shark fin ramen, followed by dim sum. Tsubaki felt nostalgic hearing this, apparently because Yoshino had always been the type to overeat till she was sick. Tsubaki continued to praise Yoshino's looks comparatively to Renji's. She loved everything about their grandfather, remarking him to be perfect and charming in his appearance, face, and body shape. A work of art created by God himself. However, to Kirishima, Yoshino was even more perfect. What are they even trying to compete in? Sitting down at the table, Tsubaki warned Yoshino to be careful of men who have big mouths, referring to Kirishima, claiming they were the type to cheat. Although Yoshino brought up Tsubaki really didn't have room to speak, as she herself was the promiscuous type. Tsubaki blushed, saying with how busy she was these days, she didn't have time to see as many guys. Only 3 at the moment, while not counting the hookups that come and go. Tsubaki was curious about how far Yoshino and Kirishima have gone. Like, doing it. But Kirishima knew even if he tried, both Yoshino and her relatives would kill him for sure. He was happy getting put off like this though. Tsubaki then brought up she wouldn't mind having a man that Yoshino had her first time with, saying they'd be Rod sisters. What is wrong with this girl? With Yoshino stepping away to get some dessert, Kirishima and Tsubaki had a private talk. Tsubaki pointed out the obvious differences between how he treated her and Yoshino. For starters, she could tell he didn't enjoy talking to her in the slightest, and was just going along with whatever she said. Kirishima was then going to bring up something he wanted to know about Tsubaki, but before he could, Yoshino returned joyously with her mango-shaved ice. Heading back for the evening, Yoshino gets a call from her teacher. Apparently, she forgot to turn in some of her important math homework. She remembered leaving the papers in her textbook. Learning she had until 8 p.m. to turn it in, Kirishima quickly ushered her to a taxi, where at the car door, he told her he'd escort Tsubaki back to her hotel. The two spoke privately in a Ferris wheel. Kirishima knew Tsubaki's father was the director of the Kyoto Dosekai Hospital under the Dosekai Group, which had very unpleasant rumors swirling around them regarding the funding of politicians, connections to crime groups, and most notably, illegal organ transplants. He got straight to the point, asking her where Yoshino's kidney was right now. He himself felt like selling his kidney for Yoshino, since Yoshino did it for him. But in scouring the black market, he couldn't find her kidney anywhere, concluding that Tsubaki never extracted Yoshino's kidney in the first place, and instead just paid her 4 million yen. He spotted her surgical scar the night he took care of her above her hip. He knew the 2 ways to confirm if the kidney was really gone was either having Yoshino do an MRI scan, or to hear it from Tsubaki herself. Tsubaki questioned why Kirishima was so obsessed with Yoshino. He couldn't really say though, only claiming his obsession was out of love for her. Tsubaki then revealed buying 1500 milliliters of blood from Yoshino in exchange for the 4 mil. She had Yoshino drained until she nearly died, not telling her she kept the blood. Tsubaki felt bad now that she broke her promise not to tell anyone about it. Kirishima questioned why Tsubaki did that, since the blood drain could have debilitated Yoshino forever. To which Tsubaki answered she tried to persuade Yoshino not to go through with the surgery. However, Yoshino told her she'd rather die than have Kirishima look down on her. Tsubaki felt it would be unfair not to risk Yoshino's life after her determined words. The two got off the Ferris wheel, where Kirishima thanked her for the talk and said she was as charming as Yoshino. Tsubaki once again complimented his smooth talk and playboy inclinations, but more sarcastically. If he ever hurt her cousin though, she'd make sure he'd never see Yoshino again. The next day, Yoshino was happily watering her garden, since she turned her assignments in on time. She asked Kirishima what he and Tsubaki talked about, but he refused to answer. He then suddenly got a message from Tsubaki, sending him a picture of Yoshino eating in a bikini like she promised. Yoshino was flabbergasted, frantically telling him to delete it now, thinking he'd use it for blackmail and put it on the internet if she went against him. But he'd never do that. He just wants her for himself. Tsubaki, in exchange, previously received a picture of Renji in his youth with Gaku, exactly what she asked for. One night while studying, Yoshino and Tsubaki chat over the phone. We learned from Tsubaki that Kirishima had gone to Osaka to meet Yoshino back when he was 12, but couldn't actually meet her in person. Tsubaki speculates on the idea that he may have been interested in her since then. Yoshino didn't believe that though, still pretty sure Kirishima didn't really like her, and assumed even if she did fall in love with him, he'd lose interest in her instantly. She felt he was more obsessed with her rather than anything else. But if she pointed that out, he might fix his obsession, and then she'd be even more confused about his true intentions. It was honestly easier for her if he just stayed crazy. Tsubaki suggests Yoshino figure out whether or not Kirishima actually loves her or is just obsessed. Because if it really was the latter, then she'd have problems even if she returned to Osaka. With summer break starting tomorrow, Yoshino was stressed as she contemplated how she could figure out whether Kirishima liked her or was just obsessed with her. Meeting up with him, 2 other female classmates run away at the sight of Yoshino. He explains the 2 were telling him about an open campus in the school during the break, and they were discussing what to do during that time. It was the job of the disciplinary committees to handle visitors. Yoshino was mind blown to discover he, of all people, was a part of the disciplinary committee, considering he never followed the rules. She initially thought the 2 girls were confessing to him. However, he explained there's no way, since during his freshman year, he always refused and gained the reputation as a person who always turned someone down. Besides, he didn't need anyone else. Yoshino was enough for him, being the first friend he's ever made. She was surprised to hear this, considering all the 2 ever did was talk about food in the news. But in contrast, women always talked to him despite the fact he never talked to them. He only had these kind of trivial conversations with her. Yoshino now could only think about how maybe Kirishima didn't see her as a romantic partner, and she might have been pointlessly contemplating this situation. At an event, now Shiota is the topic of conversation for many, given she was a child actress in a TV drama, won a beauty pageant last year, and was a well-known student broadcaster. She was being congratulated by the ladies sitting with her for getting the position as an announcer for a TV station. Some of the girls spotted her ex, Ozu, and questioned why she broke up with such a handsome guy, to which she answered he didn't like the fact that she was entering beauty pageants, and the girls laughed and giggled in agreement with her decision. Now despised these women. She knew all of them were calling her a schemer behind her back. She personally felt there was nothing wrong with scheming, since it got people to like her. After all, it made her the most successful in her friend group. The girls then spotted Kirishima, someone now had a particular past with. He ended up stopping by, making pleasant small talk while pretending he was meeting now for the first time. In the bathroom, she thought back to their fling, which occurred only for a short time when she had come back to Japan during summer vacation, as she had spent a lot of her high school life in America due to her family's businesses. She was basically in his bed every night, even though she knew how dangerous he was. The 2 greeted each other in the hall later, recounting their time together over 3 years ago. He has no intention of telling anyone about their history. He remarked she's changed a lot, as he remembered her being the type to speak her mind more. He told her she shouldn't try too hard to fit in, and then gave her his contact info on the back of a business card of a high societal connection. Later, Yoshino calls Kirishima to invite him to go with her to the Bond Festival back in Osaka. He accepts, wanting to go in July, since now would be there for a cosmetics event. We move to the day where they arrive in Osaka, and it seems Yoshino's made him carry all her new purchases. Riding in the cab together, Kirishima pointed out how pleasing it was to see her smile, which irritated her a little. She stopped the cab suddenly, seeing Shoma casually drinking ramune while getting ready to eat takoyaki. She wondered how he could eat the deep-fried dish in this summer heat. And oh no, seeing Kirishima was provoking him, she had to make an excuse quickly to dispel the tension. Pulling out a cigarette, the shop owner smacked Shoma, scolding him because she didn't want him to spill ash in front of her store. He points out she's smoking too, but that didn't matter to her since it was her store. The shop owner exchanged pleasantries with Yoshino, but was surprised to see the handsome Kirishima, asking if he was her boyfriend, which she denied. Some more ladies called him stylish, saying he looked like a young actor. They were just as surprised to hear he was from Tokyo, and everyone started laughing joyously over some jokes. And man, Kirishima was smooth, calling these older women beautiful, and they were really charmed. Shoma took another smacking, with the shop owner telling him he should be more likable like Kirishima. The older women then started gifting Kirishima a little money before riding off. Man, guys with nice faces get all the free stuff. Still, Shoma was wary of him. Elsewhere in Osaka, and now was hearing not so good news about her ex Ozu. She initially dated him because he was the son of an executive at Embrace Productions, while his mother was a freelance announcer. There was a criminal case involving a friend of Ozu's, who potentially had trafficked the woman. Hearing this, now thought of calling Kirishima for help. At Yoshino's house, the Somei Yakuza nervously greeted Kirishima. Yoshino brought him to her room, which he looked around quite curiously. He became interested in a little trinket she had sewn together in elementary school. He held it tight, asking to keep it, so she gave it to him. Downstairs, Shoma then called for her to deal with some food prep, so while she stepped away, Kirishima got a text from Now, who was hoping to catch up with him. Later that night after dinner, Kirishima tells the two he's going to head out because he reserved a hotel nearby, and he'd be back at her house tomorrow morning. While shopping, Shoma tells Yoshino she has too loose of a leash on Kirishima. She needs to keep a tighter one, given there's no telling what he might do. In bed, Now sees Kirishima's back tattoos, but he assures her there's nothing to worry about since he isn't a Yakuza. She asks him what he's doing here in Osaka, and he smiles, telling her he came to see her. But she smacks him because she knows he's lying. He wonders why she messaged him, but she told him there wasn't a particular reason. She just felt like seeing him again. After explaining he's hanging around with a person he might like, Kirishima heads to the shower. But then, getting a notification on his phone, Now sees the picture of Yoshino. Oh man, is there gonna be drama between her and our female lead? Find out on next week's episode by subscribing to my channel. Also, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.